I'm joined tonight by the Conservative MP and member of the European Research Group, Jenkin. Very good evening to you. Voters have spoken, so the interpretation went after the local elections. Time to deliver Brexit, time to hold your nose and vote for the withdrawal agreement bill, don't you think?
Well, the withdrawal agreement has been defeated 3 times by the House of Commons, and I expect it'll be defeated again. Not just because of a few Conservative MPs, it's because most of the House of Commons is against it. And that also reflects the mood in the country. It's the most unpopular of all the options. Remaining is more popular than her deal, and indeed leaving without a withdrawal agreement is much more popular than the deal. So I think one of the reasons that the Conservative Party looks very squeezed in the opinion polls at the moment is because Nigel Farage is campaigning against her deal.
What was the mood at the ERG meeting tonight, if you were there?
Well, in reaction to her speech, I think people were pretty aghast, I have to say, that she is now inviting the House of Commons to approve a customs union or a referendum. At least that's what it seems, because she's more or less saying whatever you put into the bill, then that will become the government's policy and she will support it. That's obviously what she did with taking no deal off the table. She just accepted the instruction from the House of Commons, even though she was under no legal obligation to cancel leaving the European Union. One would have thought that we should be learning that we should be sticking to the original policy, which is leaving the European Union with or without a deal.
Well, a temporary customs union, to be fair, she made that clear, didn't she? What are you holding out for personally?
Well,
no deal? Is that now your preferred course of action?
Well, what I would like, we are expecting there to be a new Conservative leader and Prime Minister within quite a short period of time, and I would expect that new leader and Prime Minister to bring back to the table what we call the Malthouse Compromise. That is, the proposals to sort out the Irish backstop. So at the very least, the agreement we're signing is something that we can leave at the end of the agreement period. We're not locked in forever, and we're not locked into an arrangement that threatens the unity of the United Kingdom, which is what Mrs May still does. But if the European Union is completely intransigent and won't negotiate, we have to be prepared to leave without a deal. If you take no deal off the table, then it's no wonder that the EU has been able to stitch up the government in this terrible deal, because they've got us over a barrel, haven't they?
The problem is, what or how will a new Prime Minister change both the attitude of European Union negotiators who've already rejected the Malthouse Compromise that you mentioned and renegotiating the withdrawal agreement, and how will it change the numbers in the House of Commons?
Well, the numbers of the House of Commons reflect the policy of the present government, and I would expect, and the present government
is the only thing that the European Union is on offer.
Let me just, can I just?
Of course.
No, well, the point is the government has treated leaving the EU as a sort of damage limitation exercise, something grudgingly that's got to be done. What we need is a Prime Minister who is enthusiastic about the opportunities and the advantages of leaving the European Union, particularly in the longer term, and is prepared to put democracy and accountability above the short-term disruption that might be caused if we leave without a withdrawal agreement. That would be quite short-lived, that disruption. The advantages would be for the long term. Most countries aren't in the European Union, and they're absolutely fine.
Well, Theresa May spoke enthusiastically about the opportunities that Brexit offered today, certainly. She also pleaded with politicians to think about a compromise. What is so bad about a compromise? Would you rather have a divided UK
I'm very happy to compromise.
Where are you compromising?
I'm very happy to compromise. I think the whole of the withdrawal agreement is pretty dreadful. It's expensive. It guarantees us nothing in return. But if the Prime Minister will negotiate properly with the European Union to remove the backstop, the Irish backstop, I would grudgingly vote for this deal as a compromise Brexit. I don't think it's optimal. I think it's still a very bad deal, but I'm prepared to compromise on that. And indeed, that's what the House of Commons voted for when she put down, when Graham Brady put down an amendment which she whipped the government to vote for, which was to replace the Irish backstop with alternative arrangements. But she didn't even take those proposals to the European Union.
Well, I mean, they've been multiple times to the European Union on that and very many issues. And the backstop, to be fair, it's not the fault of the European Union. It's the fault of the Good Friday Agreement, if you want to blame any piece of legislation.
No, that's not true at all. It's not true at all. The European Union and the Republic of Ireland have mercilessly used the Irish border issue to their advantage, to the detriment of what would be a perfectly acceptable agreement. The alternative arrangements which have been discussed doesn't require new technology, could be implemented very quickly, and there's absolutely no reason to have an indefinite, undated backstop which could be used as leverage against us in the future. Okay. And there's no reason why the United Kingdom could justify signing that.
Yeah, we talked about compromise. To people who don't want to leave the European Union, Theresa May's deal actually is a hard Brexit, isn't it? There's no single market, no customs union, no freedom of movement. Do you, in any sense, want to take those 48% of people who did not vote to leave with you on this? Do you want to be inclusive in your attitude to what we end up with?
Well, I think the difficulty here is that the European referendum was a binary decision, and the government very clearly explained what leave means. They said it means leaving the single market and leaving the customs union, and taking back control of our laws. Unfortunately, the withdrawal agreement doesn't deliver that. It certainly doesn't deliver it during the implementation period, and the political declaration suggests that we're still going to be in some kind of extensive customs arrangement with the EU deciding what product standards we have and a whole lot of other regulatory matters, which we may well want to subscribe to, but we should be treated as a sovereign state and be able to do that voluntarily, not be obliged to apply all those things, and to have the European Court of Justice for years and years into the future still determining things in our own country is not treating the United Kingdom like an independent country. That's not taking back control of our laws. What people voted for was to take back control of our laws. And that's not a question of compromise. That is a question of actually respecting the democratic decision of the British people. And part of the backlash against the party now is that we're not... The agreement doesn't deliver that.
I just want to ask you one final point. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to ask you one final point, if you don't mind. The Prime Minister has stressed for a while now that the choices really are between her deal, no deal, and no Brexit. And when polls have presented voters with that choice, it is actually no Brexit that has emerged as the single most popular option for people. Really is time, therefore, is it not, for a second referendum, as presented by Theresa May today in her 10-point plan?
Well, given... I mean, let's wait and see on that point. Some polls say different things. It depends how you ask the question.
Well, it depends how you ask the question. When you're presented with those three things, that's what emerges.
Well, some polls show that. Some polls that show that
I've spent the last hour looking at polling. That
is a more popular... Right. No. Well, I think we're going to disagree on that. But nobody's been making the case for leaving without a withdrawal agreement, apart from a few Conservative backbenchers and a few businesses. We're drowned out by the lobby groups and big business and the supply chain industries. The supply chain, I mean, the CBI dinner, the supply chain industries represent about 3% of GDP, and yet they've completely dominated the discussion. And the idea that the democratic mandate of the British people seems to just get ignored. And unfortunately, I think you're going to see in the European elections, from your point of view, for the argument you're putting, and not you, of course, that most people are voting for Brexit parties of one sort or another. Most people want to see the referendum honoured, and most people will say, if we can't get a good deal, well, then we must just leave and put an end to the uncertainty. That's what's damaging investment at the moment. It's the protracted uncertainty. And in fact, Mrs May's deal will just prolong the uncertainty, because it means we're still negotiating
unless you vote for it, of course.
but
Bernard Jenkin.
Well, no, if I vote for her deal, there's another 2 years at least of negotiation before we get to the final relationship. And all that uncertainty and another cliff edge at the end of it, so-called.
Bernard Jenkin, thank you very much indeed for your time this evening. Thank you.